here today for Xomnia Connects on how to tackle an AI business challenge. This is Xomnia. Xomnia is an AI consultancy company. We're almost 10 years old right now. I think we're touching the 9th year this year. So next year is an anniversary again. We started as a social media analytics company, but we soon found out that that there were so many AI-related questions that we got into a consultancy that we are still doing. We developed the first traineeship on data science and data engineering here in the Netherlands. We are creating big data related projects for our clients, and we have of course an academy. Here you see a small grab out of our clients, and I think also a cool thing to mention is that we love ventures. So you might have heard of on the self-driving boat. We created that in a venture called Shipping Technology, and next to that we are really putting effort in responsible AI with our responsible AI webinars, and also what we do for Amsterdam UMC with the Modier project and the ocean cleanup as well. But now let's go to why we are here today. And I first want to introduce Mirela. Mirela is sitting here. She's from Gelre Ziekenhuizen, and she will talk about, or she's the program manager oncology at Gelre Ziekenhuizen, and she will also talk about this and how she tackled with a team of Xomnia a problem of the oncology department. But first, I would love to introduce you, Jasper. So I think you can already come to the stage because the next slide will be yours. You will going to present Lost in Translation. Jasper is our lead analytics translator at Xomnia, and give him a big applause.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, loud and clear. Let's see how this works. All right. So I'd like to kick us off today with a little personal story to introduce myself and today's topic. So I grew up with two teachers as parents, which is kind of nice because you know, the world gets explained to you bit by bit, and it's yeah, quite nice for a child to have it in such a way. It also has its downsides, of course. My parents knew perfectly well how to handle naughty kids. That's it comes with the situation. So fast forward a couple years, as you probably have guessed, I didn't end up becoming a teacher. This is me a couple years ago. So no teacher-like photograph, but it does get to the core of what I like to be talking about today. This is me, part of a Python bootcamp for refugees. You could imagine the situation of a Dutch guy explaining Python in English to a Syrian guy that actually really only knew Arabic. So you could imagine the difficulty in translation and understanding each other. Fun fact about Python and Arabic. So Arabic is written from right to left instead of left to right. And Arabic doesn't know any capital letters. So it's kind of hard to explain Python if, well, these basic concepts are missing. So what did this person in particular do? What he did, and you can probably see him at the right back end, he wrote to a couple friends in Damascus, and he basically said, okay, what the hell am I seeing here? And they commented in Arabic, explaining all the concepts along the way, which is pretty awesome, I thought. He was quite happy. He aced it. He aced the final exam, which is totally nice. He had a really impressive final presentation. I think it's really about what clicks at this moment. And this moment was nicely captured in this other side of the, well, part of the presentation as well. And I think something clicking, that's going to be the core of today. Really making sure that you're being understood, that people grasp a certain concept. And I think, even though I didn't quite follow my parents' footsteps in becoming a teacher, I think this experience was quite rewarding in itself. And yeah, there might have been some nuggets of wisdom that I'm going to be telling about today. You could say that it's all about connecting different worlds, which is, of course, an important topic in both being a data professional and a teacher. And nowadays, apparently, there's even a job title for it, and it's called Analytics Translator, which is a new sort of species in the data universe, you could say. So today, I'd like to take you along in what an Analytics Translator is, what he or she does, and why or when they're actually useful in data projects. And I hope, well, that I can convey some understanding to you today, and that something clicks at the end of this half hour or so. So, what is an analytics translator? I'd like to see a show of hands of people who've, well, recognize the situation. So, imagine a senior executive shouting, "We need to do something with AI." Who recognizes this? Okay, I think about 2/3 of the room just lifted their hands. What about this one? So we have a team of data scientists that has been working on a tool for about 3 months, only to discover during the presentation or the demo of version 1 to the users that nobody actually really wants to use it. So who recognizes this situation? I guess half of the room just lifted their hands. Well, I think these kind of situations is what I call the business aspects of data and AI. So back to the term analytics translator. It was first coined by McKinsey in 2018 already. And it's basically about bridging the gaps between teams and roles, or connecting worlds, to use my own words with the introduction. So they've been the first to basically think about this, but we at Xomnia have adopted this in a little different way. The purpose why we feel an analytics translator is here on this earth is basically to create clarity and understanding. They do so by speaking 3 languages: the languages of business, the languages of data, language of data, and the language of tech. We basically act as an interpreter between different teams. First of all, to prevent hobby projects taking place, but also to prevent that, or to ensure that all of the people within a company understand the possibilities of data science and have the right expectations about data science and AI. By the way, throughout this presentation, I use data, AI, data science, analytics, probably intermixed. Don't pin me down on it. I know the difference, but I'll probably just use it in a mixed way. Why is this needed? I think it often goes wrong in large, complex organizations. So this alignment between teams is far from something that's logic or natural. An important detail about the role of analytics translator is actually that it's not a role on its own. We feel that as an analytics translator, you should be able to fulfill different roles within projects. Think about being a strategic AI advisor. Think about being a business analyst within a Scrum team. Think about being a program manager. Think about, saying something about the way a tool should be adopted, or talking to stakeholders about what's important for them. So these kind of roles, or sub-roles you could say, is quite an important distinction in what, how we do our day-to-day business. One thing we're not is a developer. So although we are quite, knowledgeable about coding practices, etc., coding is not the day-to-day competency that we practice. Of course, with being an analytics translator, and specifically with these types of roles, comes a certain profile that people need to fulfill. And it's actually a mix of 5 types of skills. So the first one being domain expertise. So people should be knowledgeable about a certain industry that they're in, should be able to explain something about how that world works. With data literacy, what we mean with that is that once we see a big data set, that people should be, have no problem tackling that whatsoever. So we know how data works, we know how it can be stored, how it can be transformed, and what we can do with it, how it can be visualized. That's what we mean with data literacy. Of course, with domain knowledge and data literacy alone, we're not there. Usually it also involves developing data products. And knowing something about the way these products are developed is also part of being an analytics translator. Products aren't developed in isolation. Usually products are developed to either make money with it, save money with it, or to fulfill some other type of benefit within a company or within an organization. And this business mindset is something we value as well. Fifth, and certainly not last but not least, so to say, are the soft skills. So we feel that's quite important that people, when developing products, should be aware of the rest of the organization. What are people waiting for? How does products land after it's being developed? So this mix of 5 skills is actually something that we look for combined into the profile of an analytics translator. Within Xomnia, we're with the 6 of us. And as you can see, with the background and the things that we like and love, we're quite a diverse group, which is kind of funny in itself, because there is not really an education or a course to become an analytics translator yet. Might have to do with the mix of skills and experiences that we're looking for, but it's important to realize that we don't have a school to become an analytics translator. Hence the mix of, different kinds of educations and backgrounds. Okay, I think in these couple minutes I saw some nodding heads, so I think, the room, at least to some degree, has an idea of what we mean with analytics translation. But why should we ever deploy one? Why would you need an analytics translator in your projects? And when do you need it? What I'm about to present to you is something which has kind of been a journey for me as well. I've been part of Xomnia since January. And with the collective brain of the analytics translators, we put together, what I'm about to show you. But this is by no means set in stone, so it's continuously evolving based on new insights, etc. So I'm totally open to suggestions if you have any. So please feel free to shout or object or whatever. We're totally open to that. So I'm going to start with the first situation, which kind of revolves around AI FOMO. Who knows what FOMO is?
Fear of missing out.
Exactly. Kind of pertains to the first picture that I showed of a boardroom member saying, we need to do something with AI. But it's basically about what's the plan for my data and analytics team? How can I rationalize the activities and the work that they're doing? You need some kind of a plan to, to explain to the rest of the organization why it's useful to have a data and analytics team. The thing that we feel is a fitting answer to this situation is something we call a value proposition. So when there's a situation which is basically greenfield, there's nothing that's decided upon, all the possibilities are open, it's good to do some kind of exploration about the direction a company should go in with regards to data and AI. The way we've done this with a couple of clients already is that we start off with something we call discovery workshop. We research a couple of corporate documents, including corporate strategy, any processes that exist, and we try to get the participants to explain where they feel pains and gains as part of this process or that aligns with this corporate strategy. Next up, we try to select use cases or solutions that fit these pains and gains. So where, for example, if you say we've got large troubles with a certain part in the supply chain with maintaining vehicles, just an example, you could say that preventive maintenance might be a fitting case for this type of problem. We try to quantify these business cases as much as possible as well. So this work involves some exploratory data analysis to go with it, which is a really good way of prioritizing any use cases that were selected. The way we do the reason we do this is because it's quite a natural starting point, and it gives quite a good direction for autonomous data teams so that they know why they're actually going to be doing some activities. Let me pause there. I need to be mindful of the time. The second situation is, okay, I know a couple use cases that were selected, but are we actually equipped to take on these challenges? So which steps do I need to take in order to actually build these things? The key word is how. So how can I actually start building these cases? The model that we use here is something called a maturity quick scan, and it basically revolves around checking what the current state of an organization is on a few domains: people, tech, or data and tech, and governance. Of course, establishing a current state is not enough to know, if you're well equipped to actually start developing these products. So with the maturity quick scan also comes an assessment of the gaps. So with the first proposition, value proposition, we established a desired state, and this one is actually a current state. The gaps in between are the actions that you need to take. I hope this makes sense. I will get back later to it. The third situation. I know what to do, I know how to do it, but when should I start? At this moment, it's time to prioritize. You can't do everything at once, even though you have big ambitions. So first of all, you should determine which actions follow from the products that you've selected. So what's the product goal? Should I organize a kickoff, yes or no? How do I fill a backlog? And also with regards to the capability development. So how do I develop these products? Do I need to upskill people? Do I need to build a certain pipeline in AWS in order to do my work? Do I need to ingest sensory data and make sure that it's accessible in order to build a predictive model? Do I need to do compliancy checks? All these kind of actions need to be executed at a point in time. This is done on what we call a data and analytics roadmap. So that's the third situation that we're going to be talking about. Okay, all good and well. So how do I actually start? And where do I start? I think starting the journey of data product development without any exploration, well, it can result in getting lost. You can take unnecessary detours when the scope is too big. You can take undesired shortcuts when the scope is too small. Or you could just be going the wrong way if you, I don't know, build the wrong features first. Starting with a kickstart is what we call it, is a good way to get the team in the right direction and, basically starting with a bang. The way we do this is first scoping with the use case canvas. And there's going to be a blog that we, by one of our team members, is going to be appearing soon. So you can read all about it. You start with a product goal, you map your stakeholders, and you talk with end users about their wishes and which solutions to consider. The next step is to create a backlog and actually start product development. The way we do this is with a kickoff, and we just take the top feature on the product backlog and start developing that. So actually getting started is quite a tough thing to do, but a necessary step nonetheless. The fifth situation is a little bit further in the cycle of developing a data product. I mean, we have a business case that might or might not be really positive, but does my data product actually live up to its promise? That's quite an important question to ask yourself along the way. You might have heard about the saying "fail fast and fail often." It's quite one of those catchy phrases. But I think there aren't that many organizations that actually embrace failing fast and failing often. I'm curious about your guys' experience, but my experience is rather not fail and not at all often. Once we start something, it better work and it better be successful. In doing so, I think we forget that failing is always an option, right? Starting a data product, especially a predictive model, for example, to some extent is always high-end guessing. And guessing can be wrong. So there might be a point in time where we establish, okay, guys, this experiment is actually a failure. So how do you know if you're still on the right track? Well, this is what we call a proof of value. It starts with defining the right hypotheses. So what kind of success are we looking for? And then designing and running an experiment. Establishing a baseline, establishing any outlines of the experiment that you want to run. And quite a straightforward example is, of course, an A/B test. And then actually field testing and interpreting and quantifying the results. If it turns out that you're unsuccessful, my advice would be not to be afraid to pivot or kill a project. It's quite unpopular, but killing your darlings is definitely something you shouldn't shy away from. Don't be pot committed in poker terms. The sixth one might be familiar to the audience as well. My data project is stuck. Help! What started out as a dream became a nightmare. Everybody's involved, everybody has an opinion, but nobody actually has ownership. sponsorship is lacking, who's going to be paying for this, what do we need to do, how do we need to do it. You know, teams are rebelling, doing their own thing. Sounds familiar? Perhaps. So, to solve this, we came up with an analytical approach, of course. We called it Project Diagnostics. It's a way to stabilize a data or AI project and battling chaos, basically. We systematically walk through a couple of hygiene factors, such as, you know, is the dev team aligned with the project's goals? Is progress, you know, KPIs, but also effort that's being put in development continuously measured, yes or no? Is the team working iteratively, truly iteratively? Are users and other stakeholders actually involved in each increment? Do they have a way of providing feedback? And is something done with this feedback? This list results in a diagnose, of course, or a diagnosis. Diagnose is the verb. And of course, once you know what's up, you need to treat it. So with any gaps identified, you can start working on those in order to pull your project back on track. How am I doing time-wise? Half-hour mark, sort of? Okay, I'll try to see if I can hurry it up a little bit. You could say that the most important part of developing a data product is actually operationalizing it, because an unused solution is pretty much useless, pointless. However, I think a lot of products linger in the forever POC phase. So we develop and develop and develop, but we never actually release it, and the solution never sees production. It's quite scary to do so. It's quite scary to release a tool quite early in production, because it's kind of, in a Dutch way, met de billen bloot gaan. But it's still quite a best practice to do so. The way you could do this, and we call this deployment boosting, is to first of all think about your production state. So what does the system landscape look like? What are interfaces with other systems? Is there a release train? Are there freezes? Are company policies, rights management? Those kind of things should be considered when thinking about actually productionizing a tool. The second one, you continuously need to think about how usable it is. And I use this from my own experience. You could build a lead scoring model, but a lead score in itself is pointless for users. You need to think about how they can be involved in, for example, marketing campaigns, and how it can be embedded in their day-to-day operations. Third one is actually push the button, deploy the damn thing. But do have backup plans for when something fails, rollback, monitor performance, etc. Speaking of monitoring, and this is also a learning that we unfortunately don't see many times, adoption and usage are quite important indicators if a product is still viable and useful within a company, yes or no. You could consider things like model drift, which might be solved with retraining, but it might be required to pivot a certain model, do further development, or just pull the plug. Okay, that's me doing a lot of talking, which is always, an interesting point about a deep dive, although I think we just scratched the surface. And there are a lot of letters here that you probably cannot read, but this is basically the summary of what what I want to talk about today. We have 7 types of situations or problems that we came up, that we developed 7 solutions for. These solutions, and you might have, well, already guessed it from the way we explained it, roughly falls into two categories. The first one is prepping. The second one is executing. I currently work for HEMA, and they've quite nicely followed these steps. They have a data and analytics strategy that is perfectly in line with the company strategy, the new one, of course. They then prioritize their work for the next 2 years, and they do so according to business value, return on investment, leading basically to a quantified team ambition that also justifies any actions that are being taken, which is quite nice, actually. Little shout out. We also developed a white paper, which kind of follows the stages that I was talking about. Use case can be seen as prepping a certain problem, thinking about solutions. Development is about building certain features of a product, and then operations is about deploying the thing. I'd like to invite you to download the white paper. It's quite interesting. A lot of work has been put in. And also I think, well, I hope to have given you an insight in how we view business problems within the data and AI world. I think a lot of issues within tech can be overcome by creating clarity and understanding. That's why we're here. And I'd like to see if you have any questions about this topic before we're going to be doing a deep dive in one of the clients that we have.
And if you have any questions, you can. I will throw the mic to you. You can talk in it this way,
sharp.
not this way. I'm a really good thrower. So who has the first question? Maybe to start off, Jasper, what situations do you come across the most at companies you work for?
So for me, it's really the first situation, but that has to do with my, with my focus, so to say. So I mainly focus on the kind of situations where nothing's known, where there are just a bunch of ambitions and things that companies want to do that need to be articulated. So in that sense, it's nice that we have a structured approach for, distilling any real plans from these pains and gains that exist.
Nice. And to follow up on that, which situation do you want to see or come across the most in the future? What kinds of situations you want to work on?
So I think following the life cycle of a product can actually be quite rewarding. And unfortunately, I don't have enough experience to, have experienced it all. And within the team, we focus on different parts of this life cycle. But to really have been at the beginning, of the birth of an idea, and then all the way through to something that's deployed and valued by users, yeah, I guess that would be quite an awesome situation to be in.
Nice. I will also walk towards you if you want to speak, because I see that you are afraid of me trolling. I can understand that as well. Any questions for Jasper?
I've
I don't know. Yeah, if you want to, yeah, here.
So Jasper, in what business areas do you see that currently are the most challenges regarding data and AI? So I can imagine that this approach is really applicable on corporate level, so for an entire organization, but it can also be applied in a part of the organization, I can imagine. And where do you see a lot of challenges in this?
Nice.
So I guess that kind of depends on the type of industry that you're in. So I think operations for a retailer looks different than operations for, a trailer leasing company. But I guess, and we haven't really experienced with those kind of things, but I guess things like HR analytics, extracting sensory data is a big thing in a lot of clients that we see. I guess it starts with the data. A lot of use cases are usually, de kop ingedrukt because of a lack of data. So I guess for all of the business areas that you were talking about, it starts with data. It's hard to do data science if you don't have data. So that's a first step, I would say. It's quite hard to think of a use case in such a way if there's nothing to work on. No.
Yeah, and since you say it indeed starts with the data, I know that there's always quite some effort in exploring the data to actually be able to work with it, which is time consuming and can imagine therefore also costly. So how can you start small with a data initiative if you don't really have a lot of budget available? Is there a way that you can still create something valuable for the business, or do you really need to have a lot of money first to be able to actually dive into the data to build something?
I don't think so. So I can give you an example of one of my experiences. I mentioned the lead scoring model. Usually, or most companies do have something like a client database that they can work with. Augmenting this data with, for example, demographics, like CBS data, and if you're in a B2B business with perhaps some Chamber of Commerce data, is quite low cost. It's, of course, it does cost some money, but it's not a shocking amount. But it's quite a nice way to grow your data set and start doing some interesting data science-y stuff with it. So that might be a nice way of getting started. And I think it might not necessarily be about having a huge budget. It might also be just making the data within your system accessible. So making sure it's being ingested in whatever data platform you're using, which involves, of course, some building, but it doesn't necessarily mean a huge investment, in my experience.
Can I throw it?
I think people will hear me, no problem. But what's your coolest example of an AI project you or Xomnia have done through AI?
Yeah, it's always a tricky question.
How many do you want to have now?
I think AI is a bit of an overused term, since a lot of it is more business intelligence than actual AI.
Yeah, it's on the Gartner hype cycle for a reason.
Yeah.
Although I think it's on its way to stabilizing. So yeah, good for AI. So when I joined Xomnia, I think one of the more appealing client cases, so to say, was the ocean cleanup. Because so first of all, it has quite a large societal component. It's everything they do is not about making money, it's about making a better planet. We've been part of that journey, so that's quite a nice story. So personally, I think the stuff that I'm currently doing is also quite interesting, because for HEMA, of course, it's quite a turbulent time, I would say, and it's interesting to contribute to stabilizing that. But I'm also looking forward to my next speaker. So.
But is it AI?
Which one do you mean?
Is it artificial intelligence? Where did you use it? What is an example of that? Because
yeah,
it's a really cool word, and I'm enthusiastic about it. But yeah, the real application of AI.
Yeah.
I didn't find a true application yet.
Yeah. I always need to be mindful not to land at a semantic discussion here. Yeah. But I think you could argue that, for example, deep learning and image recognition are part of AI. It's basically a computer does something in an automated way that a human can or cannot do, but no humans are involved. And I think image recognition use cases are quite interesting in that fact, because whether we're talking about detecting stuff on camera images or classifying certain objects in a database of images, that's something that wasn't possible until a couple of years ago. So that's it's pretty cool, I guess.
I see another question, or
Me? No.
yeah, I thought you were looking.
I can go on all day.
Okay. Now maybe at the bottle you can do a further deep dive with Jasper. Time for one last question.
I have one question. So, who of the guests here have actual analytics translators working at their company? Nice. I'd be interested to hearing about the experiences, perhaps during drinks.
Nice.
I can say something. I think one of the
Yeah, I'm not going to. Yeah, it's been 10 years ago since I was on Corfball. So.
Okay, very true. No, I think one of the challenges is also the maturity of the people that should use it. I mean, I work in a company that says that they want to be more data-driven, and everybody says that, but people should really be data-driven from the inner side, and I think that's a very difficult thing. And I saw all the things you're working on, and I think it's very nice, very good, and very relevant. But in the end, you need the people around the whole projects that are going to adopt it. They should also be very data-driven and minded. And I think that is a big challenge. And I was wondering, I think there's also some role for the Analytics Translator to move these people somehow.
Yeah. So the question is.
There's no question in it actually. But
Yeah.
That's an observation, and I was wondering because I think it's an important thing, also a part of the Analytics Translator to get the people along, to make them move and think along. Yeah.
So you could interpret this as, it's kind of hard to talk about data use cases when only a small part of the company is actually, a digital native, so to say. Yeah. Yeah, this
How
is.
do you make them all digital native? That's
Yeah,
the question.
yeah. Yeah, so we had a talk by Picnic, the online supermarket, earlier this week, and they told us that they have a team of 10 data engineers and a team of 200 analysts, business analysts. And all of these 200 business analysts actually know SQL and know how to query the database in order to come up with their own insights. So I think that's kind of an extreme situation where the entire company is actually data-driven. Where this would land is probably in the situation where you would wonder how to get stuff done. The people dimension. That's what I called it. So building a data culture and upskilling your employees, making data visible, making it cool, making sure that stuff's being shared naturally. Yeah, that requires time, I guess, and the right mindset and sponsorship from executives as well.
Use with beneficials. Beneficial is always very popular.
But in a way, it's another problem as part of. In a way, it's a business problem within the data and AI world, I would say, and it can be solved. That's my conviction.
Nice. Yes. Nice one. Good throw, good throw. Give Jasper a very big applause. And I think this one is for you as well, otherwise I have a phone to sell later this evening. And then let me do some technical stuff real quick. It's always a puzzle, but yes. Mirela, the stage is yours. Thank you very much again for speaking. The floor is yours. Give Mirela a warm applause. And good luck.
Thank you for the invite to speak on this Xomnia Connect. I want to talk to you about how Xomnia connects with Gelder Ziekenhuis, so how we have a click, like Lars told. First, I want to tell you something about Gelder Ziekenhuis, the mission of Gelder Ziekenhuis, the challenge we face as a hospital, and how data can help us, and how the design process went, and the next step we are taking. And the storage, our storage will combine in the last phase. So, Gelder Ziekenhuis. Gelder Ziekenhuis is a mid-sized hospital with 2 locations in Holland. In Apeldoorn and in Zutphen, and for those who don't know where Apeldoorn and Zutphen lie as well, though, there's 2 stars in the middle, east of Holland. There is where also my home is, and where I work. So some numbers I want. This is a grab of the numbers I have. So we also have our own data. We have over 3,600 employees, the medical specialist till a cleaning lady till volunteers, but that's the number of employees we have. We give care to people in our region, and our region is about 446 people who live in our regions. Daily, we give over 20,000 treatments in the hospital. And what's the treatment? It can be an operation, a blood transfusion, a chemotherapy, you name it. 20,000 treatments we give every day. For 21,000 clinical admissions every year. So there were a patient lies 1, 2, or 3 days, that's 1 admission. And 21,000 we do in a year. Gelder Ziekenhuis has a mission. We want to take better care of each other. So we keep personal and accessible care accessible and affordable in our region. That's quite a mission we have through target innovation and better and smarter organizations of our healthcare. That's why we need data. We deliver the right care in the right place. We succeed in developing and sharing knowledge. We can't do it by our own. I talked to one of our guests of Bergman Clinics. We have to work together by initiating new forms of collaboration with our care partners and making optimal use of digital possibilities. We always pay attention to the person behind the patient and his or her quality of life. That's our main focus, quality of life. It's not always to make patients better, but give them optimal quality of life. Together we make the difference between good care and excellent personal care. Therefore, take better care of each other. That's our mission. But our mission gives us a lot of challenges. And what are the challenges in Holland? We made an agreement what challenge we do, we take together. We made an outline agreement for special medical care, where we can give care at home. That's cheaper. Our healthcare is we have to do it cheap. We have a limited budget, so we have to keep it cheaper. And when you give home care at home, it's cheap because a hospital, well, it costs. We have the intensive care and all kinds of services we give, but not necessary for every treatment we give. We have to prevent more expensive care. Expensive care you can look for. We don't operate if we don't have to. We don't draw blood if we don't have to. But also complications, when a patient has complications, that is very expensive. Patients have to stay longer in the hospital, have to be admitted in intensive care. 1 day of intensive care is about 1,500 euros only to be there. So that's expensive care. We want to reduce staff shortage. We all know COVID, the discussions of the shortage of nurses, about specialists. So we have to take care of our staff. How can we do that? By making the process efficiency. So we use them only when we need them. And to plan perfectly, but also to learn and make them, to educate them. We want to delete unnecessary registration. I took some notes. We have, in healthcare, we have hobby scientists, I assume, and we have certainly lost from FOMO. So we have a lot of registration where we don't do anything with. So we don't want to register, but we don't have to because we want to take care of the patient and we don't want to spend our time in administration. So how can IE help us? Well, that's the question. We have a lot of, when a computer can signal text and make that, to build it to data, binary, then we can use that data. Text we can't use. Stimulating innovation in healthcare. Stimulation innovation is, you can think about it by diagnosis, different methods by diagnosis or other treatments. But innovation is also knowing what adds value for that patient. So we have to do a lot of research, and for research you need data. So that's our challenges in healthcare. But we want to give good care. But what's good care? Good care, in my opinion, has 3 dimensions. Efficiency. When you don't, when you have go to the hospital when you think you have cancer, you want to know fast if you have cancer or not. That's also efficiency. That's good care. Effective, you don't want to operate if you don't need to. You don't, that's effective care. You don't want to have give chemotherapy if it doesn't say do anything about quality of life or length of life. Quality of life, that's an important one because healthcare is a co-production between a healthcare worker and the patient. The patients, the value that you added is the value that the patients give it to. That's the quality of life. For example, we have had an elder man with prostate cancer. And prostate cancer can be treated by radiotherapy or by an operation. When you get an operation, you have to be clinically admitted for 5 days. And radiotherapy is for 3 weeks, 1 hour every day on the radiotherapy department. This elderly man had a wife which had Alzheimer's. So he chose for the radiotherapy so that his wife could stay at home and he could take care of his wife. For him, that was quality of life. It doesn't matter if it was the cure or less impotency or something like that. It was taking care of his wife. And that's why he chose for the radiotherapy. That's the world of the care we live in. So good care, when you have good efficiency, effectively, and you work through to the quality of life, the value that the patient gives, that's the good care. We want to add value, but we have different dimensions about value. What's value? Value is that's what it gives you, and that's what you have to put in. Value you can see through the eyes of the patients, healthcare providers, medical staff, health insurers. There's different dimensions. That's the world of hospitals. So what's the result? What's the handling of the service, the effort? What do you want to put in? And the emotion you get. Are you satisfied by the results? First is what does it cost? And that's where in Holland we have, as a patient, you don't necessarily know what the price is of the healthcare we give because the insurer pays the bill. Effort is how much time do you have to spend in, how often do you have to go to the hospital, how difficult is it to make an appointment. That's the effort you have to take in to get the healthcare. And emotion. How's the service? Is it right or is it wrong? Did the appointment you changed every time? That's the emotion you have. So value has different perspective in healthcare of the Netherlands. So we did start up, but because we had a question, a challenge we had, and we had different players, different stakeholders in this process. The manager, I'm the manager in this particular case. I wanted to know numbers. Why? Because when I know how many new diagnosed women have with breast cancer there is, I know that over 5 weeks how much time I need on the OR. So I know what's new, and so I can predict what I need for staff, for clinical beds or something like that over 5 years. So 5 weeks. Now sometimes we get we have peaks that we don't expect, and we want to not expect the peaks in the. I want to know quality. Why? Because quality is more than the results of the treatment, but also how is the co-creation? How does the patient gives us the quality? And also, for example, we had some with an operation. We had more complications, and we saw that, and we saw that it was on a moment that we started with a new way to on the OR for stitches. Yeah, right. We saw that there were more complications. So what we did, we went back. What is the difference between the old way and the new way, and what was necessary to make the change that we had minder complications? And therefore, we built in a little bit more time on the OK, on the operation room, and we did some tutoring on the specialists who did the stitches. So, and therefore, in 2 months, we had lesser complications and we had better care. We also have to do mandatory figures. That's the way Holland is. And we want to know about turnaround time, especially in oncology. Speed is necessary because you want to know if you have cancer or not. The patients, when the patients are looking for a hospital, they also look at quality, survival figures, but also complications, and the waiting list. Most important thing is the waiting list. Care workers, he wants to have the insight in quality, but also they are a little bit scared about quality because it says something about what they do and how they work, and perhaps they're not the best of the class, and we all want to be the best of the class, and that's a little bit scary. So one of your situations, Lars, was about wanting to know the data. Yeah, sometimes that's a little bit hard in healthcare. And the care worker wants to have insight in the process. They are, if I, as a manager, know that over 5 weeks we have double numbers of operations, then the care worker is there helpful because the staff I can increase and they can help the patients with on the way they like it. So. Knowing that that's what we want with the data, what's the process? Now, this is a simple version of a care process. The patient comes to the general practitioner, go to the medical specialist, radiology, pathology, multidisciplinary consultation, and then we start the treatment. That's the simple way. But in the first 2 steps, this is the actual process. So it's a little bit complex. I talked to a colleague. We have also patients with women with breast cancer who also has a cardiac problem or diabetic. So there are several choices we have to make in the process, and it's very complex. So the process is complex, the data is complex. So after we had what data extracted, the caregivers has to believe the data, the validation, because care people, they live on their stomach, on their gut feeling. They have to make, in their work, they have to make decisions split second. That makes that a caregiver a good caregiver. But sometimes you have to act now and not think about it for 5 minutes and do then you're too late. So they are, they believe in a gut feeling, and but the gut feeling is not always in line with the data. So the context from the data and the validation of the data is very, very important in healthcare. If you make that step, then you're the winner of the situation. Interpretation of the numbers. Also, what's right, what's wrong? Is it wrong when you know the diagnosis to wait for 2 weeks to start a treatment? Sometimes you can't wait, because with leukemia, you have to start yesterday. But with breast cancer, you can wait, well, in some forms of cancer, 2, 3 weeks, sometimes 3 months. It doesn't matter for the end result. So what's our standards? What do we think is good care? For acute leukemia, you start with therapy within 24 hours. With breast cancer, you want to start when the patients believe that that the patients could make the choice for the treatment on the right way, and talk with the general practitioner about it, with their children, and in a home environment, and then make a choice. So the standards are different between different types of patients. Safe environment to talk about the results. Well, step 1 is believing the data, and then what are you doing with the data? What tells it about you as care worker? Do you want to talk about it? It's fragile. The care worker surely wants to give better care, but it's sometimes fragile. Own house in order, Plan to Check Act. That's what we want to do. When you have visitors in your own house, you clean up your own house. Before we let others in, we want to clean up our own house so that we are satisfied with the house we have, and then we want to benchmark. So that's the steps we have to take now. Well, lessons learned. Care workers' main focus is care for the patients. Well, what's the daily base for a care worker? Well, patient comes to the care worker, has 10 minutes. So you have to imagine an old lady of 80 years old has to stand up in the waiting room, walk through the waiting room, take place. Then the lady has to do his story. You have to listen. You have to do some exam, and then you have to do your administration. That in 10 minutes. That's the time a care worker has for his patients. So time is relevant, and the caregiver main focus, primary task is taking care of this patient, not the registration. So how with data there's garbage in, garbage out, and we don't want to put garbage in. So how we make that garbage good data, what we can use. And the only way to do that is to let the data work for them, that they see the benefits of good data. Second lesson is complex registration. We don't have one source. In Gelder ziekenhuizen, we have about 8 sources for this process. So it's with different types of language. You told something about Python. I don't know. That's not my manager. But different language, different database build, and they have to combine those databases. That's really complex. Well, not one source of data. That's point 3. But as a result, we have a dashboard for 70% complete and validated, and it gives us insight and it gives us opportunity to really make care better, and we can take better care for each other. So that was my presentation. I don't know if there's any questions.
Yeah, you grab.
Bye-bye.
one question about privacy, because it's a very hot topic, of course.
Yeah.
In your field,
Yeah.
medical, how do you work with the data? How do you, you need to be very careful, I believe.
Yeah, yeah.
Is all the data geanonimiseerd?
Yes, yes, yeah, yeah. All data is anonymized, and all patients agree to that we use the data. So when you go to a hospital and you sign for a treatment, there's also not the little letters on the bottom, but right in the middle that you agree with use of the data. Yeah.
Okay. And do you have to make a lot of measures to protect all the data? The security is very important on this. So it was difficult to extract all the data because of all the security restrictions?
It was built in our own environment, so it stays with us, and so the data is safe. And our systems are well checked. I'm not an IT person, but it's checked. Yes, yes,
okay.
yes.
Yeah, actually, if you use it to improve your own processes, you are a bit more free in your.
Yeah.
Then it's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And when
you lend it out to external consultancy
of to a pharmaceutical company.
When I give it the numbers to him,
But
then
luckily they didn't do that.
Yeah.
Disclaimer.
But we will use data for the benchmark, but that's also a registration we have to do in Holland, and and that's completely anonymized. So it is only the results we share. Yeah.
Yeah. Then we're talking about metadata.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Nice.
Yes, thanks a lot for your talk. When I think about systems at hospitals, I think about a lot about free text, and when doctors putting in reports of conversation they have with their patients. Now, how do you go about with your data quality in all those 7 or 8 systems that you mentioned?
Yeah, well, the validation we did by on patient level, digging into the system and see if what we see in the text is the same as we get into our dashboard. And certainly, we have to get a lot of data of free text, and that's difficult. And for now, there is still in generations of medical specialists who type with 2 fingers and can type blind and are not digital minded. So we have to go over, I think, 5-10 years, and then there will be less free text. Yeah. Yeah.
This time. So it's very nice. I was wondering, as you say, you're not an IT person yourself. So how does this construction work for you? I mean, if you have some new wishes or you want some trouble, you have some trouble. How do you have a team like from Xomnia now that is helping you out, or is there some people you have in your own company that?
Yeah, we have some own data managers and analysts in our own hospital, and Xomnia helps us with our first dashboarding, because that's a different kind of sports, I think.
Yeah.
If you look at the dashboard building, as a manager, I know exactly what I want to do with the dashboarding, and dashboarding is one step, and working with the dashboarding is a second step, and that's where my role as manager also come in, and where I work together with Analytics Translator to make the step to working with the data. That's a different step. Yeah.
So now the other departments in the hospital want the same kind of dashboarding, or?
Yeah. We started with one. I think some 100 or more to go. I think. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Nice throw.
So I have 2 questions. I think you showed us the value formula.
Yeah.
Could you maybe flip to that slide?
Yeah.
Because I was really curious about how, for example, emotion, how do you measure that? How is it being captured in your system?
When you are in care with us, on 2 times every year, every patient gets a questionnaire where we ask the patients about their beleving, hoe noem je dat? Experience with our hospital. And during the treatment, we also ask those questions to the patient, because only good care is connecting with the patient, do what gives value to the patient and gives effort to quality of life. Yeah.
That's how you measure that.
Yeah.
And my second question was, could you maybe provide an example of something that has changed as part of any insight that came from the dashboard? So is there any things that care professionals do differently to improve value?
Yeah. This dashboard is quite new, but I do have some experience with data, and we had patients came to a nurse in a quite short time for 3 times. So the patient has to come to the hospital, go back, and we thought, well, it's good for the patient to see the nurse and make a physical contact with the patient, that the patient was in their hospital. But the patient said, well, in this week I have to go to the pathology, I have to go to the specialist, my physical therapy. It's too much. And so we downgraded to 1 visit instead of 3. And so that gave quality of life back to the patient, because when you are a patient, you don't want to be a patient. You want to be a human with an illness. But more of the time, you want to be at home with your family and be who you want to be, and not being a patient. I have a patient who says, I don't want to be called a patient. I am the product manager of my own projects to getting better. So that's the new insight I get from a patient. Yeah.
Nice.
Did you actually manage to calculate this formula?
No. It's a product of my own. There's some help from literature, but it is no. We did not already rate it in euros. No, we didn't.
Yeah, I would love to have a talk with you about this one, because I'm preparing to actually calculate this.
Yeah. Okay.
I would be really happy to do that.
Yeah, we talked about collaborating. So
Nice.
Yeah, we will. Yeah.
I live in Apeldoorn, so no problem.
Oh yeah. Oh, you know. Yeah.
There was already a star at Apeldoorn, so.
Yeah. Well, there is some value-based healthcare from Potter and Thijsburg. There are some examples what made this value. Yeah.
Yeah, but I never saw an institute actually calculate it, and then also over different care programs.
Yeah.
But because this should be, you should be able to calculate this over different care programs and even over different institutions, and then it gets really interesting.
Yeah, we made some start I also work for Isala in Zwolle, and we did there a start with calculating cost from in the phase of a treatment. So, but it's a little bit hard to make emotions measurable. Yeah.
We can talk about this.
Yeah.
Nice.
Good one. Yeah.
Are there any other questions? Otherwise,
So, in which of these areas do you think you can have the biggest impact with data? Probably you can focus on all of them, but where do you start?
Well, there I have to go back to this figure. I think you have to have 3 dimensions. You have to know how they are. And that's efficient, effective, and quality of life. Those 3 dimensions, these are very important for care. You can't see them. It's not only efficiency. It's not only effectiveness. It's the 3 combined.
They're all linked.
Yeah. That's why data is so complex in healthcare.
Yeah.
Because quality of life is not something you, as an institute, have direct influence on. You are reliable of the patient, and therefore it's a co-creation. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and I can tell you where we live in the eastern of Holland, and there is some farmers. You told the doctor told me what I have to do, so it's really hard to know what for that farmer quality of life is. They only say, "Well, doctor, you decide," and that's a little bit hard. Yeah. I think in Amsterdam it will go better. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. So thanks for the talk. And I was wondering, one of the first, or you mentioned one of the measures for success is the level of trust that the people have, or your colleagues have in the data.
Yeah.
And how do you go about that, or how do you make people trust the data?
When we had some numbers where the physician said, "Oh, that's not right."
Mm-hmm.
So I sit down next to him, get on patient level, look into the files of the patient, and then check the value of the database, of the data. So, and therefore he said, "Oh, it's right." And sometimes we're wrong, and we did a failure, and we ran on and do it again and make the data right.
Okay.
So I'm not afraid of failure, because the failure, you learn a lot about the data. The garbage in, garbage out question, well, there we were. Yeah. So the medical specialist had to register better, and so our data get better.
And did confidence or trust in the data grow as you redid the experiment?
Yeah. Just hold on. Yeah. But it's very difficult, because medical specialists are aligned with the gut feeling, and that's a different, two different worlds, and one cannot do without the other. Yeah.
Nice. I think it's almost time for the bottle. Mirela, again, thank you very much for the presentation. We've been hiding the gift very well, so you couldn't see it. These flowers, and I don't know what's inside, but
thank you
it's
very
a gift
much.
for you.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for speaking. If you have any other questions to Jasper or Mirela, you can ask them at the bottle. It's at the same place as we had food. For now, I really want to thank everybody for coming. And also, one last thing I always say when I host is, if you go home, drive safe, be safe at home. I want to wish you a very good night here. Thank you very much.